New moon in Scorpio, tending to what's yours within the changing tides. A really long time ago, being the weird child I was, I read a big book. The book was the collected works of H.P. Lovecraft. It felt otherworldly, but somehow urgently relevant at the same time. Something within what I met within myself during that time felt revelatory. Fast forward 15-ish years later, I encounter Donna Haraway's term Cthulhu scene, and I'm freaking out in a good way. Isn't it wonderful to feel recognized now and again? It doesn't need to be personal or direct, literally just the feeling of, oh, I'm not crazy, I'm not alone. I'm going to generalize here, and I hope you don't mind. There is an expectation a lot of us have within the Imperial Core. We expect certainty. We expect safety, and we expect control. However, all of these ideas were created with a mechanistic universe in mind. And this is not the universe we live in. And we are not automatons. Take it from a former girl boss and computer engineering student who found this out the hard way, aka major burnout and health crisis. Our inherited feeling of entitlement to control and certainty is a working of patriarchy and colonialism. I'm not here to prove it. I'm just naming it before we get into the astrology. There's nothing natural about the structures that are falling all around us. They were not created with life in mind. What you'll find in this report. Tonight I'm writing what is the completion of a year-long written study of astrology through the moon cycles, focusing on the new moons. I'm challenging myself to include lots of information in here without spending too many sentences on any particular point. I trust that you will release or receive any message you encounter here freely. First, we'll do a little intro about the moon and where she's at in the sky, and after that, I'll get into the aspects of the new moon, basically how different planetary energies are interacting with her. The lady herself. Oh, the new moon, so mysterious. Listen, I'm not a poet yet, but if I was... So in the natal chart, the new moon is related to our emotional and spiritual needs. I hope you know that I'm simplifying here, but this is a good place to start with her. Problem is, a lot of us are disconnected from our emotions. The moon is related to nurturing, mothering energy. How we feel comforted, the home, the family, the roots, ancestors, water, the West. A lot of these have been denigrated, fragmented, polluted, desanctified. A lot of these are taken for granted. A lot of these are seriously effed up in our cultures. Some of our mothers are seriously effed up. But can you honestly blame them? What kind of world did they grow up in? A lot of us are seriously effed up too. So much for us to learn about or with the moon. I'm not currently in a place to teach any of this, but it's important, and I'll leave you with a link for a book from my personal library. The book recommendation is The 13 Original Clan Mothers by Jamie Sams. Initially, I read her book, Other Council Fires Were Here Before Ours, and that one changed my life in a big way. So I've added the link here to Thrift Books where you can pick it up. Scorpio. Scorpio is a fixed water sign. What a strange sentence, honestly. Can you imagine the pain of water trying to stay in one place without becoming stagnant or stifled? Water rarely stays still, but when it does, it merges with the earth. Scorpio rising speaking here. A big part of Scorpio's medicine is surrender. Scorpio be merging, for lack of a better way to say it, and that shit is intense. Do you feel the waves crashing over you? Merging, hopefully not from a desire to disappear the self or engulf another, but from a willingness to be the we, the non-self, the all that is. In my experience, it becomes far less personal to be perceived and do the things you've got to do if you're operating from a place where you are in regular communion with the last and the next 7 generations. It's a sobering place to be sometimes, but you probably already knew that. So there is this natural intensity to both the new moon and the archetype of Scorpio. The new moon can feel harsh, dark, stark, even scary, and Scorpio has some similar attributes. Here we're dealing with the new beginnings and planting seeds, that's the new moon, of all things taboo or disavowed. and that's Scorpio. So sex, death, grief, pain, intimacy, control, power, other people's money, shadow work, and there's a lot more here to unpack. Now we're going to get into the planetary conversations with the moon, and these are just a few of the aspects to the new moon that we are still under the influence of. Where to start? Big things happening in the sky, y'all. Here's a few you might find interesting. Moon opposing Uranus retrograde in Taurus. For 7 years, Uranus, a planet of quick change, revolution, technology, and innovation, has been transiting through Taurus, an Earth archetype related to resources and values. Now in its final retrograde before moving on into Gemini next April, Uranus is bringing abrupt change to the ways we interact with our values and resources. At this point, it can feel exhausting in a way, especially if you've been tuned in and realigning your values over the last 7 years, but we know it's a necessary big push toward who we are becoming. Big ups to Uranus in Taurus retrograde, if I'm being honest. Uranus is also at the 29th degree of Taurus, and in astrology, the 29th degree is considered the anaretic degree. I'm going to quote from starsandtarot.com, who says, starting with its name, the word anaretic derives its meaning from the Greek word anareta, which is translated as destroyer, and the anaretic degree is also known as the degree of fate. So it can be sort of a crisis point of sorts, and for people who have postponed aligning what they find comfort in, that's the moon, with their values, that's Taurus, this retrograde will hit hard and redirect them in a tangible way. Within the energy of the moon's opposition here, seeds are being planted, and it's all for the good of the web of life, but it can feel confronting, and it's easy to feel personally attacked for habit patterns that you, we, I, they were born into. Hold yourself steady and accountable, and please do give yourself and others so much grace, but keep moving forward. Moon conjunct Mercury retrograde. Mercury, who is also retrograde, merges with Luna in Scorpio, adding a possible spiciness or sharpness to your communication recently. If you're tempering your speech right now, just make sure that the sharpness isn't being reflected inward. Check in with the ways you or your parts are speaking to you. Mercury/Hermes is a trickster. Love him for that so much, honestly. And also a psychopomp. He's really a cool guy and everything, but be aware that this energy here is absolutely all over the place and could be quite challenging to handle. I wouldn't blame you if you wanted to take a vow of silence for the next day or 3 and use this time to reflect rather than speak when possible. Speak slowly, journal, or pray if that's the thing you do. Mercury moves direct November 29th. Moon trine Saturn retrograde in Pisces. Yeah, another member of the retrograde crew, and we're not even done. Part of me honestly can't bear to write about Saturn in Pisces, but a part of me must tell you something about him, even if it will be weird and wholly inadequate. I've inserted a picture of Goya's famous work, Saturn Devouring His Sun. And the caption says, "Y'all know this man?" Okay, listen, we are many humans, in parentheses, having a moment of where we are realizing maybe we don't have to be like this. Like maybe the story we've been told about human nature being selfish and greedy and violent is just a story that benefits a few powerful people. I'm going to pull on this quote by Arkan Lushwala again, because it is straight fire emoji, fire emoji. He says, and this is from his book, The Time of the Black Jaguar, he says, "We have been led to identify ourselves with our destructive side, and that with which we become identified, we overvalue and empower. This has been happening for many generations, reinforcing this harmful image of ourselves." Mic drop. And then I have here a meme of Saturn again from the same picture, and he's got a mug in his hand and it says, "Don't talk to me until I've had my son." And then I'm continuing, y'all, there is some real Wetico energy being purged out right now. We are being supported in reflecting heavily and very deeply on who or what we view as spiritual authority. That's Saturn in Pisces. On where that comes from. on how to be with the sense or fact that we are devouring what is sacred and we actually don't have to be doing that, on where we learned that behavior from in the first place. We're learning about having no or very few answers and still being implicated in the mess and gift of entanglement, about how it feels to be so fragmented and so far from who we really are, and to move toward returning to ourselves even though we have mixed, possibly traumatic experiences with trust, faith, authority, spirituality, structure, form, and formlessness. Thanks, Saturn. Moon trine Neptune retrograde in Pisces. Neptune is absolutely hauling us over the coals at the moment, but toward what we need. So hang in there. He is also at 29 degrees of Pisces, which is a crisis point in a liminal space within a liminal space. Pisces is quite a liminal sort of energy. Speaking of liminal spaces, Bayo Akomolafe said this on a podcast episode I listened to recently. We need to go beyond critique and maybe edge toward experimental liminal spaces of transformation. That requires a different kind of movement and thinking altogether. It requires getting lost. Well, we're lost. And then I have a picture here of Barbossa from Pirates of the Caribbean 3 Outworld's End. And it is a screen cap of him saying, we're good and lost now. And hopefully becoming more lost. I agree with Dr. Komolafe on what this moment requires. Neptune moves slowly, very, very slowly, so he will be chilling at 29 Pisces for a time, but he won't be aspecting the new moon in Scorpio every day. Utilize the moment to get lost, or more lost. Surrender, surrender, surrender. Let go of expectations of yourself and others. Embrace compassion for self and others. Express yourself. Listen. Explore. Experiment. The only way out is through, and your feelings and emotions are a portal. Another quote from Barbossa, for certain, you have to be lost to find a place that can't be found. Elseways, everyone would know where it was. These are my closing thoughts. If you've been sitting with your emotions and tapping into the flow without holding the weight of it on your shoulders, you will notice a marked difference in your capacity to be with what is. I'm not saying it'll be easy. I'm not telling you that there is some prize at the end of the tunnel. I'm just saying that with practice, you will probably feel more okay within the shifting sands as you learn to navigate alongside others who are able to recognize you and throw you a rope now and again. It also feels good to be able to throw a rope sometimes, too. Many of us are working towards building the village. Many of us are learning how to be in community. If you fail, allow failure to be a step toward the future. Can that be exciting to you in any way? This is so much bigger than we are. If you're feeling more steady than some of the people around you, you may have an opportunity to support someone close to you who is coming to terms with what they know they need to do now and would benefit from having space held for them. If you feel the need to be witnessed, seen, or heard by people who care about you right now, don't hesitate to reach out and ask for what you need. Know that there are thousands or millions of people across the world holding this with you, each in their own way. You are brave, and your inner work is necessary and needed and valued and noticed. Thank you, thank you, thank you.